In today's episode, Jim asks, I am skeptical of data democratization because the average decision maker does not understand data collection, transformation, integration, etc. Doesn't AI make this an even bigger problem? So let's first quickly define data democratization is the ability for anybody to be able to work with data, hence the term democratization, just like new media. Podcasting and blogging was the democratization of media, the ability for anybody to make a podcast, anybody to make a blog and such. And data democratization has been something that has been on technology companies' radar for a really long time. My whole start working with IBM years ago was around Watson Analytics, the idea of the citizen analyst, the average person who could pick up some good tooling, a data set, and generate some usable insights. Didn't work out so well. And to Jim's point, the reason it didn't work out so well is because data analysis, even though it sounds simple, isn't. There are a lot of pitfalls. There are a lot of gotchas. There are a lot of things that are not taught well and poorly emphasized when people start working with data. Things like margins of error and statistical relevance, statistical validity. All these things are things that in a layperson's experimentation with data and math and statistics and such don't really get covered. People have a tendency to approach things in a very naive fashion, which is normal. And they pick up a tool, they run a basic analysis and say, "Ha, I've got the answer." You can tell how expert somebody is in the realms of mathematics and statistics by how many shades of gray their answers come with, right? The beginning person is like, "This is the answer." The expert person is like, "Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons why this may or may not be the answer, and we're not really sure." We can give you probabilities, we can give you a sense of reliability or not in the data, but for the most part, it's not as cut and dried as you think, right? And those are the answers people hate. People hate those answers. And that's why data democratization hasn't worked out so well, because there are a whole bunch of people who want the answer, and the answer doesn't exist. There could be a range of answers. So does AI make this worse? Well, it depends on how abstracted the decision maker or the AI tool user is from the tools themselves. Certainly, the pandemic in particular has shown us that the general population is completely incapable of parsing even basic scientific data like why to wear a mask. Sorry. It's true. People can't understand even the most basic scientific facts and data points and make good decisions from them. So the question then is, does AI make this worse or an even bigger problem? It depends on who's working on the AI. It depends on who's working on the models. If you hand somebody a piece of fully polished software, a model of some kind, and they can't really tinker with the innards, they can only use it for its intended purpose, the likelihood that it goes off the rails is lower if it's good software than somebody, say, picking up Python and just trying the hand at copying and pasting code randomly from Stack Exchange. If AI is left in the hands of legitimate experts, it could potentially improve things. IBM Watson Studio is introducing bias detection at multiple levels in the process, from data intake to model drift, right? And it puts a big old warning saying like, "Hey, your model's drifted, more than 6%," or "Hey, your model's drifting on this protected class. I should probably, not do that." And so, in those instances where the person who's working on the system has to stay within the boundaries of a well-trained system and has to obey the warnings that it gives, yes, AI could potentially improve our work and potentially reduce some of the problems that come with data democratization. On the other hand, if you get that 6-week crash course person who took their 6-week crash course in AI certificate, yeah, that could make things a lot worse, because that person doesn't have the background in data science, doesn't have the background in stats and probability, probably. This is a generalization, but probably doesn't have that level of background and that level of experience of just having models go off the rails. And without a mentor, without somebody more experienced to guide them, it could make things a lot worse. I was having a conversation with a founder of a startup a few weeks ago. He was talking about how there's got all these sophisticated models they're working on building, and he got a friend of his from college. They just both graduated from college. They're going to engineering these models and have some experience in it. And I said, okay, tell me about how you're doing bias detection. Tell me about who on the team has the most experience with ethics, data ethics. And he's like, And I'm like, okay, so this is going to go off the rails pretty quickly. I said that you need to be building into your product things like monitoring for model drift, things like looking for ethical problems, things like that would fail you on a basic ethics audit. And this was news to the person. So in that instance where you have a bunch of people who are inexperienced with AI trying to deploy it, yes, AI is going to make those problems of data democratization even worse, because these are people who don't know what they're doing. On the other hand, you get somebody who has 5, 10, 15 years of experience in working with data sets, knowing when a data set is imbalanced, knowing when a p-value has gone off the rails, knowing how to do a two-tailed test. In those cases, the person who's building the system will probably do okay and will make a system that is hard for other people to screw up. So it really comes down to which is going to deliver a good outcome, a good long-term outcome. One of the dangers in AI, particularly around bias, is that a system with no constraints will perform better. It will do things that you do not want it doing. It'll behave in unethical ways, but it will, in the short term, deliver better results. A system built for the long term will make trade-offs and say, like, yeah, we don't want bias on gender identity. We don't want bias on race. And the system will have to sacrifice some levels of performance, the model's ability to generate, top-line performance, in order to meet those competing objectives. But that's exactly the kind of caution and care and attention to detail that you want. So, will AI make data democratization worse? Potentially. Will it make it better? Potentially. It all depends on who's steering the ship. How do we help people steer the ship better? Give them that list of questions. Pick up Dr. Hilary Mason's free book, Ethics in Data Science. It's got a ton of great checklists in it about questions you should ask before starting any project with data. Ethical questions, process questions, accountability questions. Those will help make all of us better data scientists, better data analysts, better AI engineers. And if you work in a company and you have a leadership role, hold your company accountable to a lot of those benchmarks. Say, we're going to adhere to these basic processes so that we generate outcomes that will not get us sued or get us failing an audit of some kind. So, really good question. We could spend a lot of time on this. If you have follow-up questions, leave them in the comments box below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.